The letter had been sitting on my kitchen table for 3 days before I found the courage to open it properly. It was not a bill, and it was not a card. The handwriting on the envelope was young and round and careful, the sort of writing a person does when they very much want to be liked. And the postmark was from a village I had not thought about in a long, long time. Larkfield, the village where I was a girl. I made my tea first. I have learned at 78 that anything important is better met with a warm cup in your hands. And then I sat down in the good chair by the window, and I slid my thumb under the flap, and I read the words of 2 people I had never met. "Dear Margaret," it began, "you don't know us, and we hope you won't think us strange for writing. We have just bought a farmhouse called Larkfield at the end of Miller's Lane. While we were sanding down the old window seat in the little bedroom under the eaves, we found something carved into the wood. It says, 'Meg, aged 9. This is my room forever.' We asked the neighbors, and old Mr. Protheroe remembered your family and helped us find your address. We would love, more than we can say, for you to come and see your old home again. There is a pot of tea and a warm welcome waiting whenever you like. With love, Hannah and Joe." I sat there for a very long time, with the letter in my lap and the tea going cool beside me. Because Meg, aged 9, was me. And that little room under the eaves, with the sloping ceiling and the one small window that looked out over the orchard, had indeed been mine forever, a very long time ago. And I realized, with a soft ache that was somehow more sweet than sad, that after nearly 70 years, my childhood home had reached out across all that time in a young stranger's careful hand and gently asked me to come back. But all of that can wait until the morning, because right now, none of it needs anything from you. Not the letter, not the years, not the long road back. Right now, there is only you and the soft weight of your blanket and the slow, easy rise and fall of your own breathing. So let yourself sink a little deeper into the pillow. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Let your jaw soften and your hands grow heavy and warm. I am going to tell you the whole of this story slowly and gently from the beginning. There is nothing for you to do but listen and drift and let the day fall quietly away behind you. Let me begin. My name is Margaret, though nobody has called me Meg, since I was a girl with scabbed knees and hair that would not stay in its plaits. I grew up at Larkfield Farm, the youngest of 4, in a rambling old stone farmhouse that always smelled of wood smoke and baking bread, and the green outdoor smell that came in on my father's coat. We were not wealthy. Farms like ours never are. But I did not know that then. When you are a child, A place is not worth money, it is worth mornings. And Larkfield had the most beautiful mornings I have ever known. The house sat at the end of a long, rutted lane, with the orchard on one side and the meadow on the other. And beyond the meadow, a slow brown stream where my brothers taught me to catch nothing at all with a bent pin and a great deal of patience. I left when I was 19, the way young people do, for a job in the city and a young man with a nice smile. My parents grew old, and then they were gone, and the farm was sold to pay for all the things that farms get sold to pay for. I married that young man. His name was David, and he was good to me for 41 years. We had our own home, our own children, our own long and gentle life. But I never went back to Larkfield. Not once. It is a strange thing about the places we love most. Sometimes we keep them shut away like a photograph in a drawer too precious to look at, in case looking should somehow wear the color from them. And so for 60 years, Larkfield lived only in my memory. Until a young couple sanding an old window seat found the promise a 9-year-old girl had carved there and decided to keep it. Now take a slow breath with me. In through the nose gently, and out like a long sigh, letting your whole body grow heavier and softer against the bed. There is no hurry in this story. We are simply going to follow it, the way you might follow a quiet lane on a summer afternoon, in no rush at all to reach the end. I wrote back, of course. I could not write back. And a fortnight later, on a soft gray morning with the promise of sun behind the clouds, my granddaughter Alice drove me the long way north, back to the village where I was born. I was nervous. I will admit that to you, here in the dark. My hands were folded very tightly in my lap as we turned off the main road and onto Miller's Lane, and the hedges rose up tall and green on either side, brushing the mirrors of the car, exactly as they had brushed the sides of my father's cart. Some things, it seems, do not change at all. And then the lane opened out, and there it was, Larkfield. A little smaller than I remembered, the way all childhood things are. But the same warm, honey-colored stone, the same crooked chimney, the same green front door, freshly painted now, with a pot of lavender on either side of the step. The door opened before we had even stopped the car, and out came Hannah and Joe. She was perhaps 30, with flour on her apron and her hair coming loose, and he was tall and gentle and a little shy, hanging back with his hands in his pockets. And when Hannah saw me climb slowly out of the car, she did not say a word. She simply came across the yard and took both my hands in hers, and her eyes were shining, and she said, "You came. You really came. Welcome home, Meg." Home. She called it home. And something in my chest that had been folded up tight for 60 years began, very quietly, to loosen. Let your eyes close now, if they haven't already. There is nothing more you need to see, just my voice and the quiet and the slow unspooling of the story. They gave me the grand tour, though it is not a grand house. And this is the part I want to tell you slowly, because it was the loveliest afternoon I have spent in a very long time. The kitchen was the first room, as it always is in a farmhouse, the warm heart of everything. They had kept the old range, black and gleaming, and there was bread rising under a cloth on the table, and I stood in the doorway, and I could almost see my mother there, with her sleeves rolled up and flour to her elbows, turning to tell me to wipe my feet. I told them about her. I told them how she baked every Tuesday and Friday, and how the whole lane could smell it, and how the men would find some excuse to be near the house at 4 o'clock. Hannah laughed at that, delighted, and said she baked on Tuesdays too, and that perhaps the house had simply taught her the way old houses do. We went through to the front room where the fireplace was, and I showed them the flagstone by the hearth that was worn into a shallow dip, and I told them it was worn that way by 4 generations of dogs turning 3 times and lying down in the exact same warm spot. Joe crouched right down and ran his hand over it, as if he were greeting all those old dogs at once, and then he looked up at me and said, "We have a dog, a daft old spaniel. That is exactly where he sleeps." And I had to sit down for a moment in the good chair by the fire, because it is a powerful thing to learn that the small warmth you loved as a child is still being loved by strangers without their even knowing why. Breathe in now slowly through your nose and let it go soft and long, like the last sigh of a very good day. Feel how heavy your arms have become. Feel the bed holding you completely, so that you do not have to hold yourself up at all. There is nowhere to be. There is nothing to carry. Just the next quiet word and the next. They made a fresh pot of tea, and we drank it in the kitchen, and slowly, one story at a time, I gave them their house. Because that is what a house is in the end. Not the stone and the slate and the beams. Those you can buy. A home is the stories that have soaked into it, and those you cannot buy at any price. They can only be handed to you gently by someone who was there. So I handed them mine. I told them about the deep kitchen windowsill, and how my sister and I would sit there in the last light reading library books until it was too dark to see the words. I told them about the beam over the door with the burn mark. From the winter, the chimney caught and my father put it out with his own coat, and never once stopped smiling. I told them which floorboard on the stairs sang out if you stepped on it, the third from the top, which is how my mother always knew when one of us was creeping down for a second slice of cake. Joe went straight to the stairs, this great tall grown man, and found the third board from the top and stepped on it. And it sang out the very same note it had sung for me 70 years ago. And he laughed like a boy, and Hannah laughed, and I laughed. And for a moment, the whole house was full of the sound, the way it used to be. I told them about the stream at the bottom of the meadow, too, and my two brothers, Robert and little Sam, who taught me to fish with a bent pin and never caught a single thing in all those years, and did not mind in the slightest. We were not there for the fish. We were there for the long gold afternoons, lying in the grass, watching the clouds go over, believing with all our hearts that summer would last forever. And in a way, I told them, it has. Because here I was, telling them about it. And now, they knew the stream had once held 3 barefoot children who were perfectly happy, and it would never quite be an empty stream to them again. Hannah pressed her hand to her mouth at that, and Joe put his arm around her, and I saw that they were the sort of young people who understood, without being told, that a place is only truly yours once you know who loved it before you. Let your eyes close a little heavier now, and let that warm afternoon settle over you like a blanket. There is nothing to reach for. Everything in this story has already turned out gently. You can simply rest inside it. Then Hannah took my hand gently and said there was something she wanted to show me. And she led me up the narrow stairs, past the singing board, to the little room under the eaves. My room, mine forever. It was smaller than in my memory, of course. The ceiling still sloped so that a grown woman had to duck. But the light came in through that one small window exactly as it always had, soft and golden, and it fell across the old window seat. And there, sanded clean and polished with care, were the words I had carved with my father's penknife on a rainy afternoon when I was 9 years old and certain, absolutely certain, that I would live there forever. Meg, aged 9. This is my room forever. I had forgotten I ever wrote it. And there it was, kept safe by the house all these years, waiting for me to come back and read it. Hannah stood very quietly beside me. And then she said the thing I will carry with me now until the end of my days. She said, "We are going to make this the nursery. We are expecting in the spring. And we wanted you to know before anyone else that a child is going to grow up loved in this room, just like you did. We did not want to paint over your words. We are going to keep them on the wall where our little one can see them. Let yourself drift now. You do not need to follow every word. Let them wash over you like warm water, like the sound of soft rain on an old slate roof when you are safe and dry beneath it." We stayed until the sun went low and gold over the meadow, and the swallows came out to stitch the evening sky above the orchard, exactly as they had every summer evening of my girlhood. We walked the garden together, the four of us, Alice too, slow and easy through the long grass. I showed Hannah where my mother's vegetable beds had been, and where the old apple trees still stood, gnarled and generous, dropping fruit into the grass for anyone who cared to gather it. Joe said he had made cider from those very apples last autumn, and that it was terrible, and that he was extremely proud of it. And I told him my father used to say the same thing about his own, every single year, and that a bad cider made with love was worth more than a good one bought in a shop. There was a bench under the biggest apple tree that had not been there in my day, and we sat on it as the light softened, and nobody hurried to fill the silence, which is how you know you are among the right sort of people. And I understood, sitting there, something that the letter had, in its gentle way, been trying to tell me all along. I had spent 60 years believing that Larkfield was lost, that it belonged only to the past, to a girl who no longer existed, to people who were gone. I had kept it shut in a drawer, too precious to look at. But a home is not a thing you lose. It is a thing you pass on. And here were two kind young people who had opened that drawer for me and let all the light back in, and asked me not to grieve the house, but to share it, to pour 60 years of love into their hands so that it could go on into a child not yet born, in a room where my words still waited on the wall. The house was not lost. The house was simply waiting to be loved again, and now it was. We write to each other now, Hannah and Joe, and I proper letters, in that same round, careful hand, and I keep every one in the drawer where I used to keep the ache. They send me photographs. The nursery, painted a soft buttercup yellow, with my words framed on the wall above the cot. The apple trees in blossom. The daft old spaniel asleep on the worn flagstone by the fire, in the exact warm dip 4 generations of dogs wore smooth before him. And in the spring, when the baby came, a little girl, they sent me a photograph of her asleep in that little room under the eaves, in the soft gold light from the one small window. And on the back, in Hannah's careful writing, it simply said, "She is home. Thank you for showing us how. Come and see her soon. With love, always." I am going to. Alice is driving me up again next month. I shall sit in the good chair by the fire with a warm cup in my hands, and I shall hold that little one. And when she is old enough, I shall tell her all the stories the house has kept. About the singing stair, and the burn mark on the beam, and the 4 o'clock bread, and the girl who once carved a promise into a window seat and believed it with her whole heart. Because it turns out she was right, that little girl. It is her room forever, just not in the way she thought. And forever, I have learned, is a great deal longer and kinder and wider than any of us can know when the people who come after us decide to keep the promise going. So let that be the last thought you carry down into sleep tonight. A small, warm room under the eaves, and the soft gold light in the window, and a house full of love that was never really lost at all, only waiting patiently to be handed on. Breathe in slow and soft, and out slower still. Let your whole body grow heavy and warm, held safe by the dark, the way the house held all those years of love, gently, without ever letting them go. You are safe. You are warm. You are exactly where you are meant to be. Let the next breath be even softer than the last, and the one after softer still. Rest now, sleep now. I will keep the kettle warm and the light on in the window, and I will be here telling quiet stories whenever you need somewhere gentle to go. Good night.